Welcome back to Half the Battle. I'm your host, as always, Daniel Levi, your co-host, Shaq. We're going to be talking UFC Glendale, Dustin Poirier versus Justin Gaethje. And Shaq, you already know the deal. Anytime that Dustin Poirier and Justin Gaethje step inside the UFC's octagon, let alone against each other, it's guaranteed violence.
Yeah, man. You know, these two are both legends in the game, and when it comes to violence, neither guy has any boring fights. I mean, each guy always lays it out on the line each time they fight, and we know most likely someone's going to die in that first round.
Yeah, I'm very excited to find out who, and, I know for a fact Dustin Poirier is focused on the task at hand, but I heard that Gaethje had some choice words for a good friend of the show, James Vick.
Yeah, man, he's talking real reckless. I mean, I think he's got other things to be worried about, but he said he was going to slap Vick when he sees him, so let's see if he's a man of his word.
Vic said, run up and get done up. And it's kind of funny because if I had a fight with Dustin Poirier, that'd be the only thing on my fucking mind, Shaq.
Exactly. So, we'll see what happens on Saturday night.
Yeah, I'm excited to find out. And, in case anyone missed the recap, had a nice little solid 2-0 night the other night at UFC 223, cashed 2 underdog plays, and still champion Rose Namajunas 3 units at plus 125. Plus our boy Gritzmacher just retired Lozon as a plus 150 underdog. Unfortunately, our Chiesa bet got canceled, but hey, 2-0, 6.75 units. I'll take the winning night.
Yeah, of course we wanted the 3-0, but, it's unfortunate that my boy Connor is throwing dollies through buses, but, it is what it is. And shout out to Gritzmacher and still Rose Namajunas. And, it's funny because Mike Brown and Trevor Whitman went up against each other last week, and Trevor got the win, and they're going up against each other this week. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, we'll see who gets the win this week. And real quick, before we break down the card, if anyone's looking to sign up to Best Fight Picks, just go to bestfightpicks.com. Use the promo code Matador to save 15% off any package. Make sure the M in Matador is lowercase. And we'll hook you up because, look, we got 2 more UFC events in April, plus a Bellator max bet. So April's a pretty fucking big month for us, Shaq.
Man, April's a huge month. Next week, UFC Atlantic City is one of the biggest nights in the history of the company, man. It's going to be a huge night, a lot of money risk, and most likely another undefeated night.
Yeah, I'm excited, man, because MaxBet season has already started, and what we're going to do with this card is we'll start off with the Fox prelims, we'll go to the main card, and then for all you Fight Pass watchers, because I know Fight Pass has been fucking up lately, we'll do the Fight Pass prelims for you too. But first up, in the middleweight division, a pivotal matchup between Brad Tavares, he's minus 140, the comeback on Krzysztof Jaco is plus 120. Now, remember when they were hyping up my boy Krzysztof Jaco and they called him Chris Jaco?
Man, Dan, as you know, me and you were very high on Krzysztof Jaco a few years ago. I mean, we rode this guy all the way to the top 15, and, he's let us down the last 2 fights. The Dave Branch fight, I don't know if it's growing pains or was Krzysztof Jaco a fraud? I don't know because, look, before the matchup, I'm thinking he's going to light Dave Branch up from the outside and win an easy 30-27 decision. But then turns out the stand-up was 50-50 for the most part. He's getting tied up against the fence, putting his hands up. The takedowns, there really wasn't much resistance. I know Dave Branch is a gorilla in the tie-ups, but, Krzysztof, as the top 15 guy, would be able to handle it, and that wasn't the case. And then the Uriah Hall fight, look, there's a fine line. You got to realize, look, I'm not going to finish this guy, and he completely gassed himself out, and, he got knocked out in the second round. Now I understand. Now he's down 2 fights. Back is completely against the wall, and as we've seen in the past, when guys' backs are against the wall, they come out and have some of the best performances. So, it's gonna be tough. And Brad Tavares, I mean, ever since he had that little rough stretch when he was getting knocked out by Boetsch and the champ Rob Whittaker, he's been on point, man. He beat Elias, he beat Talos, but those guys, I expect him to beat. I think this is a tougher fight. I'm actually surprised that most of the action came in on Krzysztof, but personally, I think Brad Tavares has more advantages in this fight. I think he's got better hands. I think he's got harder kicks. And Krzysztof, I feel like he's abandoned his kicks. I think Krzysztof might have a speed advantage, for the first round, but, I feel like he's been punching real wide and sloppy these days, man. So I wouldn't be shocked if he had a great performance, but I think Brad Tavares can mix it up and go to the takedowns as well. We've seen how good his wrestling is in the past, and I just think he's got more advantages in this fight.
So you're picking Brad via decision?
Yeah, you know my boy Brad does not finish fights. Always wins out by decision.
You know, it's an interesting battle because, look, it's a fight between the two best point fighters in the UFC middleweight division. You know, Brad Tavares versus Krzysztof Jaco. Look, Brad Tavares, he's the harder hitter. He's got nasty leg kicks. He's more patient out there. He probably has the better cardio. But I think Krzysztof, even though if you look at the stats, it doesn't say that he's more active. I think that his style with all those feints will make the judges think that he's being more active, especially since this is going to be a stand-up fight. I know Brad Tavares ain't going to come out here like a bitch and try to hug Krzysztof against the wall. And I also know Krzysztof isn't about to hurt Brad early, blow his load, and then get caught. This is going to be a 3-round striking affair. And I actually think that favors Krzysztof Jaco because, look, I know Brad Tavares has some heavy leg kicks. I know he's going to land a couple along the way, but I do think throughout the fight, the movement of Krzysztof, the jab of Krzysztof, I think he's going to bring back that left kick. I think his back's up against the wall. I think he's got a point to prove. I think we're going to see the guy that we used to say, if this fight hits a split decision, you know it's going to go to Jaco. So I think we're going to see old Krzysztof back here, and it's going to be a very closely contested 29-28 unanimous decision, possibly a split for Krzysztof Jaco. Now, next up in the flyweight division, we got Wilson Hayes. He's minus 130, and the comeback on John Moraga is plus 110. Now, John Moraga is an underdog in Arizona. What do you think about that?
Yeah, man, he's got redemption in his hometown. You know, the first one didn't go his way against Sergio. And, you know, just the other day, everyone thought John Moraga was done. You know, we all faded him against Bobolatov at a ridiculous line, and, you know, we all paid the price. And John Moraga, we know what he's capable of, but in the past he's just been this guy that, you know, would accept takedowns and just, you know, accept things, and you would just kind of see that lack of fire in his eyes, man. So we kind of stayed away from him. But, you know, these last two fights he's definitely been doing his thing. Wilson Hayes, you know, I've always tried to fade Wilson in the past. You know, I mean, there's no secret. He is very chinny, and, I mean, his striking hasn't developed the way you would think it has with the camp that he's at and, you know, how long he's been fighting. You know, his stand-up really hasn't improved. You know, of course he knows how to get on the inside and tie guys up, and obviously that's pretty much cut and dry. It's a striker versus a grappler. You know, even though Moraga is a dealing wrestler, we've seen him get taken down several times in the past, and we've seen Wilson get wobbled several times in the past. But I think Moraga's not hitting a stride, but I think Moraga's about to go on a little 3-4 fight winning streak possibly. And I think he's going to keep it standing, and I think if he keeps it standing, he will knock Wilson Hayes out.
Yeah, I mean, well said, man. Look, it comes down to a couple things because when Wilson Hayes grabs a hold of people, he grown men. I mean, you saw that fight against Dustin Ortiz, and Dustin Ortiz is one of the premier grinders in the flyweight division. And Wilson Hayes taught him a lesson that, look, there's levels to this shit, son. But with John Moraga, those calf kicks, the way he set up Bibulatov, it wasn't just a left hook, man. He set him up with the calf kicks right from the jump, hit him with a big right, knocked him out with the left hook. And now with Wilson Hayes, it's, you know, I hate to be the guy that's like, oh, but if he keeps it standing, he wins. If he hits the mat, he loses. Look, John Moraga is a D1 wrestler. Make no mistake about it. However, if there has been a weakness in the past, it has been when guys have been able to grind him out. That being said, I think he has what it takes to keep this fight standing, pop that jab, hit those calf kicks, and like you said, potentially knock out Wilson Hayes. That being said, if this gets into a scramble heavy fight, you know, if this becomes a scramble fest, Wilson will have the advantage. But as long as John can keep this standing, you know, he can touch that chin of Wilson Hayes and put him out. So I agree with you, man. I got the underdog here, John Moraga. Now, next up in the welterweight division, we got Muslim Sali-kov. He's minus 185. The comeback on Ricky Rainey is plus 160. Now, initially, it was supposed to be our boy Abdul Razak Al Hassan taking on Muslim Sali-kov. And for those that don't know, I mean, we've max bet this guy pretty much every single fight he's had in the UFC. Razak Al Hassan has been an absolute money train, but now they're bringing in the Bellator vet, the NFC vet, Ricky Rainey, to take on Muslim Sali-kov. And what's your opinion?
Yeah, you know, I'm happy for Ricky Rainey. You know, I've seen him fight on the local scene in the past, and, you know, he worked his way up to the big leagues. I think he's got a good matchup here, and I actually think he is very live in this fight. Look, Muslim Sali-kov, this king of spin, king of, what is it, Dan? King of Kung Fu? Spin?
Yeah, the king of spin.
Come on, guys. His spinning ain't shit. Like, I think maybe when he was younger, maybe it was effective. But let's be honest, look at the region where he was fighting in on the local scene, and look at the guys who he was fighting at. The guys who he was fighting, man, he was fighting jobbers. And, I think this might be a case of a complete fraud situation. And, I know he's training with Mark Henry and those guys down there, but I think he is towards the tail end of his career. I mean, those spins look super labored, and I mean, his takedown defense was suspect. I know he's fighting Alex Garcia, but don't sleep on my boy Ricky Rainey's tie-up in his clinch game. And on the feet, man, Ricky Rainey's got power. It's just that historically, Ricky Rainey is one of these guys that, we refer to him as the Terrion Ware of the middleweight division. You know what I'm saying? He wins a lot of fights that he loses. You know what I'm saying? And he likes to lose a lot of close decisions that he wins. I thought he beat Chitty. I thought he beat Diego Lima, but, they didn't go his way. And typically sometimes you don't like to go on that side, but I do think this is a case of I don't think Muslim Sali-kov is gonna have a long future moving forward. He might win this fight, but I just don't think he's going to hang around long term. I think he's lucky Razak Al-Hassan got injured, because I think he was going to take a canvas snap. And I'm going to go with Ricky Rainey, actually, man, by unanimous decision.
Yeah, look, I don't think it's a bad pick, but there's a common theme on this entire card, and we'll get to it when we talk about Courtney Casey. We'll get to it when we talk about Luke Sanders. Ricky Rainey is what we like to refer to as an underperformer, because a lot of these fights, I think he wins, and the judges don't like to give it to him. So, look, he's going to come out here. It's going to look like he won this fight against Muslim Sali-kov, and they're going to give it to Muslim Sali-kov. And, look, Muslim's biggest flaw, is his submission defense. The 2 times he's lost are via rear naked choke, and, he wasn't even fighting the hands. He'll tap that mat right away. But the thing is, Ricky Rainey only has one win via submission. Not saying he can't get his second submission win here, but we know Ricky Rainey is a striker, and, man, that fight with Chidi Njokuani was super close. A lot of us thought that Ricky Rainey might have won that fight, and, he might come out here and win this fight too, but I think this is one of those spots where Muslim Sali-kov can actually come out here and front run all the way to a decision. So I'm going to go with Sali-kov here. And next up, in the middleweight division, we got Antonio Carlos Jr. He's minus 265, and the comeback on Tim Boetsch is plus 225. Now, every once in a while, Tim Boetsch has the knack for getting that big upset. I mean, you remember that fight against Yushin Okami with the big uppercuts. You remember when he head kick knocked out Johnny Hendricks. He's got a bunch of knockouts on his highlight reel. You think he's going to add the surging Carlos Jr. to that list?
And Tim Boetsch, like you just mentioned, man, he's a good underdog, man. He's cashed as an underdog several times, and in that same range that he's in right now, that plus 200 up range, man. So Tim Boetsch is that guy, you never know what type of guy are you going to get. Are you going to get fat Tim Boetsch, or are you going to get in shape Tim Boetsch? And if it's fat Tim Boetsch, I fully expect this to be a first round submission, you know what I'm saying? But if it's in shape Tim Boetsch, I think it can be a competitive fight. I think Tim is super game, but, I think Antonio Carlos Jr., ever since the Dan Kelly fight, has completely turned the corner in his career. He's taking everything seriously. He's making improvements every fight. And I actually think he is the top 15 guy that a lot of people think he is, man. And I think he is going to get a finish over Tim Boetsch. I think he's going to keep his range on the feet, pop him with a jab, just like how he did the Marshman, a similar body frame, similar matchup. And I think he's going to do his thing on the mat, man. I think when it hits the mat, I think Tim's going to be completely out of water, and Antonio will move on to that top 15.
Yeah, look, Antonio Carlos Jr., he's paid his dues. He had to cut his teeth. He had to go there against Dan Kelly, against Pat Cummins. He took his first 2 UFC Ls, and now the kid's on a streak. And I think people forget he's only 25, 26 years old. He's just a kid, Shaq, and he's getting better every single day. That fight, that performance he put up against Marshman, not only did he choke him out, Shaq, he beat him on the feet as well. And I think right here against Tim Boetsch, this is a measuring stick. We're going to find out exactly where Antonio Carlos Jr. lies in that middleweight division. If he can come out here and steamroll a guy like Tim Boetsch, we're going to know, okay, kid, you're in the top 15. You're for real. I'm glad they didn't give him someone like Elias because, we know he'd smoke Elias. But now with Tim Boetsch, Tim Boetsch is the real perennial tough out. And, Tim Boetsch hits like a truck. Correct me if I'm wrong. Is he D1 wrestling?
Yes, he is.
He's a D1 wrestler. He's very experienced, over 10 UFC fights. I mean, he's coming in for a 6-figure paycheck. So much respect to Tim Boetsch. I simply think that right now Antonio Carlos Jr. is firing on a different frequency. I think that'll show in this fight. And I see the favorite getting the win. I was actually surprised that the line wasn't a little wider. I thought people were going to steam it all the way to minus 400, but minus 265 is about right in my opinion. So I'm going to go with Antonio Carlos Jr. here via rear naked choke finish. Main card. Courtney Casey, she's minus 130. The comeback on Michelle Waterson, the Karate Hottie, is plus 110. Now, Shaq, we've been known to fade the Karate Hottie, and you going to do that here as well?
We'll find out and see, man, because, Courtney Casey, like we mentioned before about these underperformers, is an underperformer. She's a 500 fighter. She lost to Pearl Gonzalez. She lost to Emily Kagan in amateurs. She got dropped by Jessica Aguilar. I mean, look, I understand that Michelle Waterson's a quitter, and I don't think Michelle Waterson's tough at all. I think that she's one of the more mentally weak fighters in the strawweight division, and it wouldn't shock me if Courtney broke her down and, touched that chin because, she does have a 5-inch reach advantage. And like I said, I don't think Waterson's tough. The thing with Courtney Casey is I know she's only 30 years old, but I feel like she strikes me as a little more older, man, in the way she takes damage and the way she reacts to a lot of things, the way her body shuts down at times, and her fight IQ, man. It's just, what's her UFC record, Dan?
3-4.
What's her record when fights go to decision?
1-4.
You know what I'm saying? And I just, those type of things, it's hard to rely on those type of things because, the female game definitely likes to go the 3-round distance a lot. And, it's a 50-50 fight in my opinion. I'm actually going to take Waterson here. I think, Casey will find ways to mess this up, man. I feel like Waterson's going to get her typical head and arm throw. I do think there's going to be a lot of hairy moments. And like I said, I wouldn't be shocked if Casey broke her down, but Courtney Casey strikes me as a fighter that makes a lot of mental mistakes and doesn't capitalize in the pivotal moments. I think anyone can go out there and beat Jessica Aguilar, or like that. And, the Rando win, that was, Rando's a 500 fighter too. So I'm going to go with Waterson.
Yeah, look, Courtney Casey is what we like to refer to as a habitual underperformer. I mean, she's so much better than her record shows, and a lot of those losses could be wins, man. It's just that she finds a way to lose. Like, that's just the story for her, man. In that Herrig fight, she sat back too much and got out-volumed. A couple more shots and she could have won the decision. Against Aguilar, I know she won the fight, but why are you giving up takedowns to a 50-year-old woman? That fight against Joanne Calderwood, you're teeing off, you got her hurt, and then you pull a Mehdi Baghdad and you go for a flying armbar. I'm like, is this chick serious? And that's been the history, throughout her whole career, man. So, she's got a totally winnable fight here with Michelle Waterson. She's way bigger, she's tougher, she's younger, she's fresher. I mean, Michelle Waterson, what she got? All she's got is a head and arm throw and a side kick, and, she's kind of hot. And that's about the extent of it, Shaq. But, how is Courtney Casey going to find a way to lose this one? You know what I'm saying, man? I'll tell you how. She's going to sit back, not do enough, and Michelle Waterson's probably going to come out here and win a decision. Look, I'm going to pick Courtney Casey because I actually think she's a way better fighter. I think if she lets things go and she fights up to her potential, I think she can hurt Michelle Waterson. I think she can close her eyes. I think she can go out there and choke her out. It's just I can't rely on her to do that based on her history, man. I mean, like you said, she ain't even a 500 fighter, bro. She's a 3-4 fighter in the UFC, 7-5 overall. Habitual underperformer, not someone I trust with my money, but I do think that she has a lot of advantages here, and if she actually performs up to her abilities, I think Courtney Casey can win this fight handily. It's just, can you trust her to do that? No, I can't, but the pick is Courtney Casey. Now,
me and Dan, we've been waiting for her to fight to her abilities for the last 3 years.
You know what I'm saying, man? It's like, eventually you got to just understand that she is what she is. And that's the bottom line. Now, next up in the middleweight division, we got Israel Adesanya. He's minus 265, and the comeback on Marvin Vettori is plus 225. Now, I know we were joking around a little bit. His name's the Italian Dream. Someone said the Italian Scheme, but, I got respect for Marvin Vettori. He's a very tough guy. He's very physical for the division. Now, a lot of people are under the impression here that this fight hits the mat one time, and all of a sudden, it's going to be over. All of a sudden, Marvin Vettori is going to submit Israel Adesanya. Now, I don't have any reason to believe that, because the times that I've seen people attempt takedowns on Israel Adesanya, I mean, he goes for the underhooks. He knows how to push that head down. He knows how to pull the leg out. He knows how to sprawl. He knows how to wall walk. So as far as I'm concerned, the defensive grappling instincts for Israel Adesanya, he's shown all the right signs. Now it's just a step up in competition. So the question here, Shaq, is he ready for Marvin Vettori?
You know, before his debut, they say, you know, he contemplated pulling out the fight and that he went into the fight very injured. And to be honest, man, I thought Marvin lost to Omari his last fight. I didn't think the last round was a 10-8. I thought it was a 10-9, and I thought Omari won the first 2 rounds. And, you know, I think Marvin, you know, when he came in, you know, it's funny because I actually faded him in his debut against Alberto Uda, thinking he was a little stiff. And, you know, he got through that, so, you know, kind of ignored him and let him move on. And he has shown me that he is stiff, and he's shown me that his cardio is in question as well. I mean, even though he beat Vitor Miranda, I mean, that third round was very sloppy and ugly. I mean, he was huffing and puffing. What about the Antonio Carlos Jr. fight when he completely gassed out in the third round? And what I'm noticing is from that King's MMA camp, man, that style is kind of dying down, man. They kind of tend to blow out their loads, and, you know, I feel like if he does that against Israel, I think he's going to get absolutely teed off on that range, man. And I know Israel's super green, and make no mistake about it, when his time comes, it will come. But I think Marvin's still green as well, man. Marvin's still a kid as well. And I think he might be getting a little overwhelmed by the hype train, man. I think he might be stressing out a little bit over it, man. He's been saying he doesn't buy all the hype, and you know what happens when guys start saying these things out weeks before the fight. That means they're already slowly breaking, man. That means Israel's already in his head, and I think Israel is his head. I think Marvin's going to come out hard early, and I think he's going to gas out, and when he gasses out, I think he's going to get teed off on.
Yeah, you know what this kind of reminds me of? It reminds me of a couple weeks back when Sean O'Malley fought Andre Sukumtut, and, you know, everyone was overly emotional. They overvalued Andre Sukumtut. Oh, Sean O'Malley's all hype. Sean O'Malley's all this. Now they're saying the same things about Israel. He's all hype. Yeah, the line didn't flip like it did in the O'Malley fight, but still, you know, people are under the impression that Israel isn't the real deal. Now, look, I'm not saying throw Israel in there with a Brad Tavares or a Jaco or anything like that. Far from it, but he's got Marvin Vettori here. Look, if you haven't figured out how to beat Alberto Uda and Vitor Miranda yet, I don't know what to say. And I 100% agree with you when you say that Omari won that fight, because you know what, Shaq? Omari did win that fight. And, you know, bullshit judging, suspect judging, it's a part of the game. One of the judges scored the Ketlin Vieira fight for Kat Zingano. These things happen from time to time, you know? So, that being said, man, if Marvin starts to gas out, which he has in many of his fights, he will get teed off on in a way where he's never experienced anything like this before, because, you know, Israel Adesanya is a real striker. I mean, go watch his Glory fights, and I know someone's going to bring up the fact that, oh, he's been knocked out a couple times in Glory. Tell me what Glory striker hasn't been knocked out a couple times. You put Marvin Vettori in that Glory ring, I guarantee you he's getting knocked out too. And look, I know Marvin's got the right training partners. I know he's got Giga Chikadze and all that, but Israel's on a different level right now. So unless we're completely wrong and Israel is a fish, you know, out of water off his back, which I don't believe he is, because we saw those grappling instincts, man. I mean, we saw him get back up from takedowns, and that same guy that took him down, yeah, I know Rob Wilkinson is a jobber, but look, Rob Wilkinson has taken down all of his opponents. He took down CR Bahadurzadeh as well, man. So, you know, it's like one of those guys like Anton Zafir, where he's not going to cut it in the UFC, but he still takes down his opponents in the first round. Anton Zafir took down my boy Li Jingliang. I know you remember that. So, look, maybe Israel gets taken down early, but I think the longer the fight goes, Marvin's going to be huffing and puffing. His hands are going to be down at his waist. Israel's going to pick his shots, and I think it has a potential to be a highlight reel knockout. So I'm going to go with the favorite, Israel Adesanya. Now, Shaq, the co-main event of the evening. Initially, it was supposed to be Carlos Condit versus Matt Brown, which would have been incredible, but now it's still going to be great because we got Carlos Condit. He's a plus 170 dog to Alex Cowboy Oliveira, who's minus 200. Who do you got?
Man, it's unfortunate to see the state of that Carlos is in, and I think this is a case of typical old vet on his way out the game. I think, he's had enough. I think he already retired. I think he came back because, I don't know what's going on in his personal life, but I'm assuming, he didn't really have much options outside of fighting.
That coffee shop wasn't working out too well.
No, the coffee shop wasn't working out too well, and I think he's a legend of the game, but I think his time has passed. I think his time is coming to an end. I think he's mentally checked out the game. I think, he was a guy that was one of these reaction fighters. His reaction speed had to be on point to win fights in the UFC, and I think he's a little older. I don't think his chin's as good, and I think his head is just completely out of it. And once that reaction and speed goes, man, for example, like Bobby Green, a guy that's a reaction fighter, things generally go south. And like I said, he's already mentally checked out the game. I think Alex is going to brutalize him, man. I think Alex has a clear path to victory with the tie-up game and the takedowns. And, I know Alex is coming off that war against Yancey where, he did take a knee and quit, but I think he hit everything hit Yancey with everything in the kitchen sink. And I'm not sure if Carlos can take that type of punishment these days. I think Alex is going to come out here and get a first or second round finish, man, to be honest. I think they operate on two completely different frequencies. I think Neil Magny took it very easy on Condit. I think Alex Cowboy is going to absolutely butcher him if he gets him in those spots.
Yeah, look, I 100% agree with you on this one, man. When fighters contemplate retirement and they say, maybe I don't have what it takes to compete at this level anymore, get out the game ASAP, because this isn't a game where you can question yourself like that. As soon as that retirement, that R word starts to hit your mind and starts to, be a part of your vocabulary, get the fuck out. Now I understand, Carlos versus Matt Brown. Okay, both those guys are contemplating retirement. That's kind of a legends fight. That's almost like a fight you could see in Bellator. You know what I'm saying? Fucking, have them headline Bellator. But right now, in this day and age, you're putting Carlos Condit in there against a young, fresh, hungry guy whose aspirations are the title. If you ask Carlos Condit what his aspiration is right now, I don't think he even knows. Actually, I do think he knows. He wants that $115K. Come get that six-figure paycheck real quick, back-to-back, you know what I'm saying? And then don't fight for another year. Maybe retire after this fight. But for Alex Oliveira, he wants the belt, man. And I think that there's a difference in hunger. I also think if Alex Oliveira comes at Carlos Condit the way he came at Yancy Medeiros, he's going to put him away early. This might be like OAM versus Evan Dunham where, Carlos Condit starts getting finished in that first round. You know how this shit goes. Once they reach that point, it doesn't start getting better. It starts getting worse. Carlos Condit is 2-6 in his last 8 fights, Shaq. That's worse than the run Anthony Showtime Pettis is on right now. Carlos Condit hasn't been on a big run since 2012. Just think about that for a second. And I ain't no hater. I got a signed WEC belt with Carlos Condit and Dominic Cruz on my wall. But when it comes to making money, how the hell could you trust a guy like Carlos Condit who retired in 2016 after the Robbie Lawler fight? Then he comes back against Maia, gets finished in the first round. It's interesting because Robbie Lawler and Carlos Condit, they both subsequently got finished in the first round after that 5-round war. Kind of like Dunham and Beneil, they had that 3-round war in their next fights. They both got finished in under a minute. That's how the fight game goes. It's unforgiving. It doesn't give a shit about you. And I think those tie-ups, we already know in Carlos Condit's prime, his takedown defense sucked. He's got a 38% takedown defense. And what's Alex Cowboy's game? He likes to pin you up against the fence. He's got one of the nastiest clinch games in the entire sport. And when he starts ripping those knees, Shaq, it's not just to kill clock. He breaks ribs with those knees. You remember what he did to Will Brooks? Will Brooks was never the same after that fight. Will Brooks couldn't even win a fight ever again after that fight. He breaks ribs. And I'm not going to be surprised if Alex Cowboy hits Condit with a knee to the midsection and Condit takes a knee. You know what I mean? If Condit says, okay, I've had enough. That being said, because Condit is a super tough guy and historically he has been durable, eventually that durability has to wear off. But if it goes a 3-round distance, I think it'll be a 30-26 ass whooping for Alex Oliveira. And people like to talk about, oh, he's coming back too soon, this, too soon. This ain't Michael Bisping, who's 40 years old, and he's coming back the same month that he got finished by GSP to fight Kelvin. This dude's taking about 4 to 5 months off. I don't see what the big deal is. He's a guy that likes to fight consistently. He's been in the gym, and he's a very, very physical guy. When Alex Cowboy puts his hands on you, when he puts his knees on you, you feel it. And I think Carlos Condit's going to be in for a very, very long night. So, yeah, I think either Alex is going to charge at him with those straight punches and put him out like that. I think he might put him away with a knee to the midsection. Or simply, get those takedowns to add up, win the decision. All he's got to do in this spot is don't get caught. Because as you know, Shaq, Carlos Condit has 30 wins. 28 of those 30 wins are via finish. So that means that Carlos Condit ain't exactly known for winning decisions, and we all, many people know that the one decision he did win in the UFC against Nick Diaz, a lot of people thought that Nick Diaz might have won that fight. So Carlos Condit isn't exactly very friendly on the judges' scorecard. So I think Alex Oliveira's got him covered here. I think he's going to go out here. I think he's going to finish Carlos Condit. So Alex Oliveira for the win. Now, Shaq, main event of the evening, and holy shit, man. Dustin versus Justin. Dustin the Diamond Poirier. He's minus 145. The comeback on Justin Gaethje is plus 125. Now it's an incredible fight. You know what's funny? Justin Gaethje is a 500 fighter in the UFC. Now I know it's kind of funny to say that because he's only 1-1 and it's against two very, very tough guys. But the facts are facts. Dustin Poirier has been cutting his teeth since in the UFC and WEC since he was just a kid. He's been paying his dues forever. And Justin Gaethje wants to come out here and take his spot. Who you got for the victory?
Man, it's a great fight. Both of these guys, this is why they're in the main event, man. They go out there and they fight, and they always either launch guys or get launched, man. So this is why it's going to be an instant classic. And as far as the matchup goes, I think Justin Gaethje, I'm not sure he learned anything from the Eddie Alvarez fight. I've heard Trevor Whitman say, there's really not much to change. They thought they had it, and some of the things they said kind of scare me, man. When it comes to taking damage, he was saying things like if he would have lost a decision, it would have killed him. So I respect the killer be killed mindset, but Dustin Poirier's had to learn that way the hard way in the past with taking damage. Poirier was basically, or Gaethje is basically what Poirier was, as a kid, man, like just straight brawling inside the pocket, taking damage. And that's, long term does not always end up well. I do fear that both guys one day aren't going to be able to take a punch. You know what I'm saying? They're both chinny, let's be honest. I mean, I know every lightweight's chinny, but both these guys are very chinny. We've seen, just look at Dustin's history at 145. He used to get wobbled every fight. Gaethje used to get wobbled every fight in World Series of Fighting. So we know what type of guys these guys are. And but I think the difference is just the cleaner technique, man. I think when they do trade inside the pocket, because, Poirier can say whatever he wants, Gaethje can say whatever he wants, these guys are going to slug and meet in the middle, and they're going to see who's going to fall down. And I think the cleaner technique of Poirier will prevail. People are saying if this fight goes into the later rounds, it favors Gaethje, and I'm not going to disagree with that. That's his style. He likes to break guys over a long period of time, but I just think his technique is too sloppy. I think people think he has a better chin, but I'm not convinced. The guy's been wobbled by lesser fighters in the past. And he wobbles in a scary way. You know what I'm saying? So I'm gonna go with Dustin Poirier by first round KO. Straight left, right hook, something like that. I think it's going to be one of those instant classics for however long it lasts, but I just think the cleaner technique will prevail. I think Dustin's not looking to take that type of damage. I think he's looking to slip and rip. And I think Gaethje will come back after this loss, but I think he's going to have to learn that he needs to clean up some things.
I actually completely disagree with this narrative that, if the fight goes later, the advantage goes to Justin Gaethje. Let's be honest here. Which one out of the two just got finished in the later rounds? It wasn't Dustin Poirier. It was Justin Gaethje.
Exactly. Exactly. And, they're making that argument because of the Eddie Alvarez fight. And, the shots were illegal, man.
Look, he took 3 illegal knees to the head. Well, it is what it is, man. But as far as I'm concerned, I think the later rounds favor Dustin Poirier. And I'll tell you why. Because Justin Gaethje, he goes balls to the wall from the opening round. and he's always gassed out by the second round. Watch all his fights. It's just the guy is so damn tough. You know, people don't know he's actually a D1 wrestler. They don't know he's a D1 wrestler because he never uses it. But the reason I bring it up, not because he might use takedowns in this fight, but just because he has that mentality and he is that damn tough. And that's the reason he's able to go the distance in most of his fights when he doesn't finish someone. I mean, you remember that time he went to a split with Melvin Gillard. But look, what I'm trying to say here, man, he throws everything with full force, 100% balls to the wall, and then his hands start coming down. And your hands start coming down against a guy like Dustin Poirier. And you might be down on your back looking up at the lights. You know, I think the scariest moments for Poirier are actually early in the fight. And the 2 times he's been knocked out were by guys that are way faster than Justin Gaethje. Now, I know someone's going to say, oh, but Gaethje finished one of those guys, Michael Johnson. It's like, yeah, Gaethje finished a weathered Michael Johnson. Gaethje finished a Michael Johnson that Khabib literally gave a tour of the octagon to. So, you know, that wasn't the same guy. That wasn't the Blackie Owl that Dustin Poirier fought. So, look, I think Dustin can also win this fight early, too. I mean, how many first-round finishes does he have, you know? And he's been finishing real guys in the first round. I'm talking about guys like Bobby Green. I'm talking about guys like Carlos Diego Ferreira. So, you know, as far as I'm concerned, Dustin Poirier is the much better fighter here. He's cleaner here. But as we know, even though he's trying to be more defensively responsible, Dustin Poirier can't help himself sometimes. Dustin Poirier loves to get into a good old-fashioned brawl. And that's what Justin Gaethje wants. Justin Gaethje wants to break him down with leg kicks. It's going to be interesting because Poirier is a southpaw. However, Gaethje showed that he's able to get off on leg kicks against southpaws in that fight with Michael Johnson. You know, he has to go with the front leg kick. But that being said, man, I think Dustin's going to have an answer for him, and as long as he doesn't do anything stupid, I think he's going to come out here. I think he's going to knock Justin Gaethje out. Justin Gaethje's going to be 1-2 in the UFC. And it's funny because before this fight, Justin Gaethje was, you know, he was calling Dustin Poirier a crybaby. And, well, now he got the Dustin Poirier fight. And now he's calling Vic a crybaby. And, you know, after he goes 1-2 by getting knocked out by Poirier, he's going to be 1-2 in the UFC. You know, that's the only 1-2 opponent that Vic will fight because he's ranked ahead of him. We'll see who the crybaby is when Justin Gaethje's 1-3 in the UFC. So, look, he's very exciting. You know, I love Leonard Garcia too. These guys come and stand and bang. But, I mean, if you think there's longevity in a style like that, you're a fucking idiot. So, you know, he might catch Dustin Poirier here. I highly doubt it. I got Poirier inside the distance. Now, before we talk about these prelims, we got to remind these guys that April is a huge month. Look, already got one event behind us, undefeated, clean sweep, 2-0, 6.75 units. Now we got this event right here. We have a max bet on the line. We have a nice total on the line. We might even have an underdog play. And then we got next week with Atlantic City. And it's not over then, Shaq. We got a max bet in Bellator too. So they got to know. Go to bestfightpicks.com. Use the promo code MATADOR, MATADOR, with a lowercase m to save 15% off any package, Shaq.
Yeah, man, it's a serious month, man. April, especially Atlantic City. I'm telling you, Atlantic City is going to be one of the biggest gold mines of the year, man. It's some easy matchups on that card. I hope everyone can get down. We're going to get the easy money fights, and we're going to keep cashing and going undefeated on these cards, man. These are the pay-per-views, the pay-per-view stretches. You know, we got Brazil, and, you know, we got those USA fight nights, man. These are the gold mine opportunities.
And I heard there's a rumor that we might not only have one max bet for next week, we might have 2 max bets for UFC AC.
Yeah, man, you know, multiple max bets, and you guys already know what happens when I say it's max bet season. Just go ahead and pull your money out, and it's going to cash.
But it all starts this weekend because, you know, we got a big one on the line. But that's all I got to say. I can't give anything away. All I got to say is bestfightpicks.com. Use the promo code MATADOR. Save 15%. And let's get this fucking money. Now, Shaq, let's talk about these Fight Pass prelims real quick, man, because, look, we got Luke Sanders. He's a minus 460 favorite. The comeback on Patrick Williams is plus 365. Now, talking about habitual underperformers, how about this kid Luke Sanders, Shaq?
Yeah, man, Luke Sanders, it's sad because I think he's very skilled offensively. He definitely knows how to crack chins. And Patrick Williams is probably the worst fighter on the roster. I mean, let's be honest here, he's complete garbage. I mean, I don't think the guy trains. The guy's what I like to call a a half-time fighter, a part-time fighter. He just put it this way, fighting ain't his first job. You know, he works a job on the side. And I mean, just look at when he goes in there and fights, he's all over the place, no cardio. But the one thing about Patrick Williams is a lot of people don't know is he's the hardest hitter in the bantamweight division. And, you know, a lot of people will say I'm crazy for saying that. But, damn, it's facts, ain't it?
Hey, when all the fighters got flown out to the Performance Institute, my boy Patty Ice, Patrick Williams, was ranked right behind Francis Ngannou in pure punching power. So I'm not sure if that can be disputed, Shaq.
I mean, let's be honest. When we watch his fights, everyone that he touches he's dropped all of his opponents. Just put it that way. I mean, he's wobbled all of his opponents, and the power in his right hand is serious. And Luke Sanders, I mean, this guy strikes me as, you know, a Misha Serkinov type of guy. If you put him in one bad spot, the fight's going to be over. As you can clearly see, I mean, he lost to Andre Sukumtach, and you guys already heard our opinion on Andre Sukumtach a few episodes ago. Just put it this way, I'm not sure if Andre Sukumtach is going to win another UFC fight, but Luke Sanders, I mean, Andre Sukumtach might have thrown one or two punches the entire first round. I mean, Luke, you're going to win a decision. All you got to do is pick your shots. He's clearly not answering back. And what does he do? He gets frustrated and charges in with his face first, and he gets caught and he goes down stiff. And you know, he just strikes me as he might have a little mental lapse in there, man. I think he loses focus. What happened when he was beating Yuri Alcantara's ass and then he illegally knees him when he's 10-8ing him and he illegally knees him and loses a point. Imagine if you're betting on him being in that spot and he loses a point. Like, you know what I'm saying? You go from having a 10-8 round to, you know, losing a point and making this fight super sketchy. And then even after that, the way he was trading inside the pocket, you know, I think this fight is going to be over quick. I wouldn't be shocked if Patrick Williams caught him within the first couple minutes because I think he does have that type of power. But I do think Patrick Williams is a joke. And I think if he can't finish him within that 1 minute, he'll just go down eventually, man. I think Luke is skilled enough offensively to just land that left hand and put him down and send Patrick Williams his pink slip and his walking papers. But I think this fight's going to be over quick.
You know, both of these guys are 1-2 in the UFC, but you know who's got the better win between the two of them? It ain't Luke Sanders, you know. What's a better win, Maximo Blanco or motherfucking Alejandro Perez? Patrick Williams finished Alejandro Perez in the first round. Look, Patrick Williams, even though he's kind of a joke, even though if this fight goes past the first round, he's going to have his hands on his hips. He's going to look like he's not UFC caliber, but the guy hits like a goddamn truck. You watch it, just watch his UFC career. That fight with Chris Beals, the ugliest shit you've ever seen. But when he connects, I mean, dude's eyes roll back. And then his fight with Alejandro puts him away in the first round. No one else has even been able to beat Alejandro. Alejandro's 6-1 in the UFC. Then he takes on, you know, Tom Duquesnoy, you know, the fire kid, the fraud kid. And Duquesnoy's a minus 1,000 favorite in that spot. Duquesnoy's getting dropped all over the place in that spot. And, you know, eventually he found a way to win because if you can't find a way to win against Patrick Williams, then you probably don't belong in the UFC. But that being said, man, Luke Sanders, the theme of this show, my friend, has been habitual underperformers. Just like his teammate Courtney Casey. You know, what's Luke going to do to find a... How's Luke going to fuck this one up, man? You know, because he's got every advantage. He's the way better fighter. He should whoop Patrick Williams' ass easily. But watch him find a way to lose this one. You know, that fight with Yuri Alcantara, and Yuri's a real warrior. Yuri's a guy I have a ton of respect for. But the fight was in the bag. He had that shit won. And look, you know, it's one thing to get tapped by a knee bar. You know, knee bars are, if you've ever done jiu-jitsu before, you know, you're going to tap to that shit because you don't want to fucking get your knee broken. But look, have you ever seen Tyson Griffin versus Frankie Edgar? You see what someone with real heart does when they're in a deep knee bar? You know what I'm saying? Fucking Frankie Edgar puts his thumbs up, no big deal. Luke Sanders, it wasn't even deep yet. As soon as there was even any threat of the limb being attacked, he's tapping that mat right away. So I agree when you say that there's something, you know, wrong mentally with Luke Sanders, but I also will say the kid's got a very powerful left hand, but Patrick Williams has a very powerful right hand. These two are very heavy hitters. I don't see this fight lasting very long. And you know what? Fuck it, man. I'm going to go with my boy Patty Ice for the upset. I say he starches Luke Sanders in the first round. So, yeah, I'm going to go with Pat Williams here. Now, next up in the bantamweight division, and I'm surprised this is the second fight of the night because these are two, as far as I'm concerned, these are two top 15 guys. We got Matthew Lopez. He's minus 130. The comeback on Alejandro Turbo Perez is plus 110. Now, look, Alejandro is the king weasel at 135 pounds. You know, a lot of people listen to Half the Battle. Now they like to use our term weasel, which is fine because imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. But is my boy Alejandro going to be able to weasel this one out here against a top 15 guy in Lopez?
You know, every fight, everyone gets tricked into thinking Alejandro's opponent is going to stop his weaseling, and you know, we're going to see what happens this weekend, man. Alejandro, like we said in the past, is the best weasel in the division. He can get dropped multiple times in rounds and still win the rounds. He can get his opponent, you know, a point deducted. I mean, you know, he's that type of guy. He finds ways to win. You know, his only loss is a complete fluke, if we're being honest. You know what I'm saying? So I mean, let's just act like he's undefeated in the UFC. You know what I'm saying? So, and you know, Matthew Lopez, man, he's had a tough UFC career. You know, his debut fight against Hani, you know, I thought he showed great heart in that fight. But there's a consistent theme in his fights when they go along. You know, his cardio, I think his cardio is in question. You know, Hani did completely gas him out and broke him down, you know. But then one would counter me with what happened in the Mitch Gagnon fight when he beat his ass. Dan, go ahead and read me Mitch Gagnon's wins again.
So he got into the top 15 by beating Mitch Gagnon. Mitch Gagnon has wins over Walel Watson, Dustin Kimura, Tim Gorman, and Roman Salazar.
You know what I'm saying? And then you know, he fights Johnny Eduardo, who's coming off you know, almost 2-year layoff after getting choked out by Aljamain. And you know, Johnny tried to pull a Brazilian weasel tactic and roll for a leg lock, and he got his head smashed in the match. So, you know, congrats. And then he fights a Sun Tao, and you know, he took a Sun Tao down in the first round. He fought well, but make no mistake about it, he missed weight. He looked really heavy, and he got broken down and knocked out. And Alejandro's that type of guy where his opponents get super frustrated, and I feel like Lopez could get lured in, man. If he thinks Alejandro's going to come in and make a stupid mistake, man, Alejandro's going to make Lopez come to him and get him frustrated. And don't be shocked when the crowd's booing and, you know, you're looking at your TV and whoever's doing the commentaries complaining about how boring the fight it is. Yeah, go ahead and expect that, because my boy Alejandro Turbo Perez is going to weasel out another decision. He's going to move on to 6-1 in the UFC. And I think Lopez is going to fight tough, but I think he's going to look silly out there in times, man. I think he's going to be I think his stance is going to get square a lot. I think he's going to get countered. And I think when he tries to shoot in, I think Alejandro's too squirmy for him to get consistent takedowns throughout this fight. But we'll see. You know, people think Alejandro's chin's in question, and we will see. But what about Lopez's chin, man? He gets square a lot. He's been dropped by Mitch Gagnon, Sun Tao, and I think he's a little bit too overly aggressive sometimes. He likes to throw one too many punches like we saw in that Mitch Gagnon fight. And I think this is a perfect opponent for Alejandro to weasel on.
Yeah, and, you know, shout out to Matthew Lopez for getting wins over Mitch Gagnon and Johnny Eduardo. But last time I checked, look, they were giving Johnny Eduardo the senior citizen discount at the movies last week. So, you know, I don't really put too much stock into a win like that. And Alejandro, man, the reason that he's been able to win all these decisions, it's not like he's paying off the judges. I mean, that footwork's on point. Ever since he won Tough Latino America the first season when he beat Jose Quinones, and I don't know if you guys seen what my boy Jose Teco Quinones has been doing lately, but that's a serious fighter right there, and Alejandro beat him in his UFC debut. Well, Alejandro's been at AKA. He's on the mats every day with guys like Khabib. He's in the same training room as guys like Daniel Cormier. So he's been around champions his whole UFC career, and as far as I'm concerned, that's what's leading him to all these victories, man. That footwork is so on point. He doesn't put himself in any unnecessary danger. He knows how to get those takedowns at the end of rounds. He's what we like to call a winner. As far as Matthew Lopez is concerned, you know, he's a strong wrestler. He's got knockout power, but on the feet, he's way too stationary. He's way too lackadaisical. It's one punch at a time. Now, don't get me wrong. That one punch hits you on the chin. You know, anyone could go down. These are 4-ounce gloves we're talking about. But the long-term battle, 100%, 9 times out of 10, 90% is going to Alejandro Perez. If you go to a decision with Alejandro Perez, don't expect to win that fight. So for Matthew Lopez to win this one, and I know it's in his hometown and this and that, Matthew's got to get consistent takedowns, and he's got to hold Alejandro down. And I just don't see that happening. I really feel like that work at AKA has been paying dividends for Alejandro. You see guys like Yuri Alcantara, and I know Yuri is known as a striker, but, Yuri's taken down most of his UFC opponents, whether it's with foot sweeps or body locks or whatever, man. It's just he scrambles and then he finds a way on his back, but he takes down a lot of dudes. When he tried to take down Alejandro changes that takedown attempt into a takedown attempt of his own. So Alejandro's been putting in serious work. He looks to me like the top 15 guy here. I think he's going to outpoint Matthew Lopez to a 15-minute decision here. I think it's going to be unanimous. So, the odds makers opened at -150 Alejandro. The public shifted the line the other way. Now it's +110 Alejandro. I see value in that. My pick is Alejandro Perez. Now, next up in the heavyweight division, we got Arjan Bueller. He's -400, and the comeback on Adam Wejciech is +325. Now, Shaq, the line opened -150 for Arjan. Now it's -400. And last time Adam Wejciech fought, he came through for us on that win against Anthony Hamilton. But safe to say this is a step up from Anthony Hamilton, huh?
Yeah, man. Dan, let's be honest here. We can name bantamweights that could beat Anthony Hamilton.
I got Jimmy Rivera over Anthony Hamilton.
You know what I'm saying? So, thanks, Adam, for the win, but he made it a lot sketchier than I thought it was going to be. Adam's one of those guys where he's very easy to beat by decision, man. And Arjan already shows me that he's got that nice point fighting base to fall back on. We already know his wrestling credentials. I think he's got great potential. I definitely see the power translating down the line, possibly this fight. I think Adam's one of these more home run type of fighters. He likes to go on his back looking for arm bars and triangles. And, if that works, shout out to him. But I think Arjan ties him up for 3 rounds, lands some more effective shots, possibly a knockout. But I'm going to go ahead and say decision. I just think Adam's way too loose on the feet. I just think he still green, needs more seasoning. But I think Arjan's going to take this and take it rather handedly.
Yeah, look, the public steamed him for a reason. We talk about fading the public, but I think they're right on this one. I think Arjan's UFC debut, it kind of reminded me of when Daniel Cormier fought Jeff Monson. And go back and watch that. He's got the wrestling credentials, but he wants to test his stand-up for the 15 minutes and, get those takedowns at the end of the rounds. And we know Wejciech, he's got very poor takedown defense. Look, if Arjan tries to keep the standing for all 15 minutes, that'll give Adam opportunities to get off on some strikes. But let's be honest, Adam is kind of a smaller heavyweight, and he's probably going to get bodied here. So I'm going to go with Arjan via decision here. Now, next up in the welterweight division, we got ATL's own Diego Lima. He's -115, and Yushin Okami is -105. Now, this is Yushin's welterweight debut in the UFC. He's fought at welterweight in other leagues, but in the UFC it's his welterweight debut. My boy Diego desperately needs a win. Who you got?
Man, I'm happy to see my boy Diego back in the UFC. He looks in really good shape for this fight. And, unfortunately in the past, things didn't go his way. That chin didn't hold up. The Lee fight, the Tim Means fight, even his fight that he won, he got wobbled in that fight as well. And, he might be one of these guys where he might be a tough house fighter. And I know you know what that means. Some guys just win in tough, and it doesn't translate to the real cage where it matters, So Diego could be one of those guys. And Diego has shown me, alarming things in the past. The Jason Jackson fight, I don't know what that was. He pretty much shot in and kind of quit right away. But, he is fighting Yushin, and Yushin's an old man. Yushin's been getting his ass beat for a long time, Dan. And, his age with all that weight cutting, it's, he's definitely a hard guy to trust. I actually kind of disagree with this line. I actually think Yushin should be the favorite here. I think he's better in the clinch. I think he hits harder. And I just really can't say where Diego has any advantages in this fight, but you can't really trust either one of these guys with their chins. I'm going to go and take Diego just because he's a hometown guy, but it wouldn't shock me either way. I think he's going to pull off a fluke knockout or something.
Look, I got to go with Diego because I'm not about to go see Diego and Douglas next week at the NFC event and get my ass whooped for picking Yushin Okami. You know what I'm saying? Look, I think the youth is on Diego's side, and if he can keep that chin protected, he's got a very good chance here against Yushin Okami. So, Yushin dropping to 170 says a lot about the state of the sport because, you remember when he was one of the bigger middleweights? Remember when he moved up to 205? I mean, the guy...
That's what happens when you take steroids out the game.
my boy Yushin needs his Japanese supplements badly, so I'm going to go with Diego Lima here for the win. Now, real quick, you don't need to give a breakdown, just give a quick pick. Shayna Dobson or Lauren Mueller, they're both minus 110.
I'm going to take Lauren Mueller because she's hotter.
Yeah, look, Lauren Mueller, she's minus 110. Shayna's minus 110. Lauren Mueller is the hotter chick, and she likes dudes, so I'm going to go with Lauren Mueller. and shout out to Shayna Dobson because my boy Vic said that she's actually got a lot of potential, and I remember her last fight against Ariel Beck. She made her quit, so that was kind of cool when you see chicks stop other chicks with strikes. I got Lauren Mueller here because I think I know what the UFC are trying to do with this one. Last but not least, Gilbert Durinho Burns versus Dan Moret. Now, Shaq, real quick, you know what they got Gilbert Durinho Burns lined at right now?
Yeah, look, personally,
wait. Burns, do you know what they got Gilbert Durinho lined at right now?
Like minus 600, I think.
Shaq, Gilbert the punching bag Durinho Burns is minus 610, and the comeback on Dan Moret is plus 455.
Yeah. Look, in my opinion, if you're thinking Gilbert Burns is that easy, parlay, free money, that type of term, hey, go ahead and find out. Personally, of course, I think he's going to win this fight, but that's definitely a guy I will never trust. Of course, Moret, inexperienced. Burns, way more experience. Burns, I just don't think he's very tough. I think when things get if anything major happens that goes wrong, I think he's the type of guy that'll fold, even though he has put off comeback wins in the past, even though they were flukes. But I'm going to go with Burns here, first or second round submission. Even though Moret's one of these lab guys and he's tough, we'll see what happens. We'll see if he can avoid the submission and get a late finish here. But I'll go with Gilbert Burns.
Look, I'll let everyone in on a secret. One of the plays that we released to our clients was a couple weeks back, OAM, to beat Gilbert Burns. And, we thought that was actually a very easy spot to take advantage of the punching bag known as Gilbert Burns. But in this spot with Dan Moret, look, Dan loves to play off his back. He loves to go for submissions. And that ain't about to work against Gilbert Durinho because if there's one thing we can give him credit for is his jiu-jitsu. And, a bit of his toughness, too. I mean, the guy, he's very hard to finish inside the UFC. He is experienced. So,
a fake tough guy.
You know what I'm saying. Gilbert's probably going to win this one, but we'll look to fade Gilbert Durinho very soon because he is a very fadeable guy, my friend. Now, before we talk about the fight to watch and the fighter to watch, let's hit up Kyle Marley for the Big Marley Minute. And joining us now on the Big Marley Minute is Big Marley himself. Kyle, what's going on?
Hey, man, not much. Glad we got another card this week after that mess last week. Hopefully it'll stay together.
Well, I mean, I'm pretty damn sure you're glad that Dustin Poirier and Justin Gaethje are in the main event. Guaranteed violence. Let's not even beat around the bush. Who you got?
I got to go Poirier. I think it's just going to get into later rounds, and Gaethje just can't keep up that pace forever. So I think Poirier will mix in some takedowns, hopefully stay away from the leg kicks. But I like both of them, of course. You can't just fade one in DraftKings. 100% of my lineups are going to have this fight in it, most likely. I'm just going to have more with Poirier. I think he's going to get it done maybe third, fourth round with the TKO. So he's going to be in more of my lineups. You could stack this in cash. But, yeah, I cannot wait to watch it. Looking forward to it.
Alex Cowboy Oliveira stepping up on short notice, which he is known to do. He's taking on the legend Carlos Condit. You think Condit's got something left in the tank, or are you taking the short notice fill-up?
I mean, as a Condit fan, I hope he does. But, I got to go on the popular side here and take Oliveira to win this. It's just a bad matchup for Condit, really, stylistically and towards the end of his career. And he just looked like shit last fight. So I'm picking Cowboy to win here. I might have some exposure to both sides because I do think Cowboy will be pretty popular. So I'll take some stabs at Condit just because I like to zag when everyone else is to zig when everyone else is zagging. So I'll be a little bit different there just to be opposite of the field. But, yeah, I got to go with Oliveira for the most part.
Now, Israel Adesanya is making his return, but he's got to step up this time in Marvin Vettori. You leaning with the underdog Vettori, or you think the hype train of Israel is going to continue here?
I'm going to pick Israel. I'm already a big fan of this guy. I like everything about his stand-up. So I do hope we do see some stand-up in this fight. And if that's the case, I think he's going to win by a TKO or KO. But it's a tough test, man. Vittori, especially at, what is it here, 7,100 on DraftKings. That's $2,000 cheaper than Israel. I think he's a better DraftKings play than anything else, really. If you're going to take a stab at him, I think this is the place to do it. Put 7,100 on him, and then you could pay up for other favorites. And if he's going to win, it's probably going to be by getting takedowns. And I can also see like a 60-point win from Israel, just be held against the fence for the first round or two, getting no points, and then maybe winning in the third or a decision. So I don't know exactly what I'm going to do with this because I do think Vettori will be pretty popular. I'm thinking I'll just be underweight to the field as a whole.
Antonio Carlos Jr. is taking on Tim Boetsch. Look, we know Carlos Jr. has been looking better than ever, but Tim Boetsch has a knack for the upset. I have a feeling the winner of this fight is going to be a high point scorer. Which way you going?
Yeah, I got to go both sides on this one as well because it is going to be high no matter which side it is. But I'm going to go with Carlos Jr. I think he does get it to the ground, probably pulls off a submission at some point. So I'll have more of him than I will Boetsch. But if Boetsch wins, it's going to be because he knocks him out. And that's going to be, I mean, it doesn't matter what round. It could be the first round. If that happens, he's going to score over 100 points. So I can't fade him completely. But this is another good fight that if you're going to go 100% on a fight, this is the one to do it right here. But I'll pick Carlos Jr. to win.
So Muslim Sali-kov is taking on Ricky Rainey. Now, in Muslim's debut, he didn't get the stand-up fight he wanted. With Ricky Rainey, he will get that stand-up fight. Someone's going to get knocked out in this one. Which way you leaning?
I'm going to have to go with the favorite. I think Sali-kov will get it done and I mean, hopefully live up to the hype. But I don't really know, man. I still have some film to watch on these guys. I don't really have a good read on it yet. But if I'm leaning one way right now, it's going to be Sali-kov or fade completely.
And I'm pretty sure it's safe to assume you're going to be passing on Brad Tavares versus Krzysztof Jaco. Look, it's going to be an intriguing battle, but I'd have to assume these two aren't going to be high point scorers on DraftKings.
Yeah, well, I don't know if I'll fade that. I think if there's a side I'm going to take, it's going to be Jaco just because he's 7,400. And you got to pick the dog somewhere. So I think the betting line's pretty close on that one. So I'll probably take some stabs at Jaco or maybe even have him in my cash lineup to have a safer punt. But, yeah, I don't really have any interest in Tavares at all at, I think, 8,800, which is just ridiculous for the way he fights. I don't see how he pays off that salary. But the one thing I will say is if you're trying to win that $20,000 in the $8 tournament, nobody's going to have Tavares. So if he does go out there and get a first-round knockout, nobody's going to have him. So that could be a sneaky play. I just don't think I'm going to be on it.
Well, for everyone listening, the last time he got a first-round knockout was against Phil Baroni. Very long time ago. So it's probably not going to happen. But you never know. This is MMA. So that being said, man, I have a feeling, and, I don't want to say I know for a fact because I don't know anything for a fact, but I have a strong inkling that Luke Sanders and Patrick Williams is going to be a very violent fight. I mean, look, all of Patrick Williams' fights, someone's gotten finished. All of Luke Sanders' UFC fights, someone's gotten finished. Someone's getting finished in this one. You think it's going to be the underdog Pat Williams or the big favorite Luke Sanders?
Yeah, I got to say Pat Williams gets finished here. He just doesn't have the gas tank to go 15 minutes. So it's going to end at some point. And if he does win, it's probably going to be first round as well. So this is another spot. If you want to take some punts on Patrick Williams, I think that's okay because if he wins, he's going to outscore his price for sure. But I think Luke Sanders is going to get this done. In the first two rounds, I think he'll just be too much, put up too high of a pace for Patrick Williams. He won't be able to handle it, and he's just going to drown him and end up getting that TKO. So I'm definitely going to have more Sanders, but I'll take a stab or two at Williams just in case.
And last but not least, Arjan Bueller. He opened minus 150. Now he's minus 400. And I know in his UFC debut, he was kind of testing the waters a little bit, but I have a feeling this time he's going to come out here. He might score a lot of takedowns. As you've told me many times, Kyle, takedowns score points in DraftKings. Is Arjan a guy we got to have on our lineups?
No, I don't think you have to have him. I'm not going to have any of his opponent. So Arjan will be where I go if I'm picking this fight. But it's more of a fade, I think, than anything. He's the third highest priced guy at 9,200. So I would like him to score at least 92 points in a win, which he can do. So I won't fade him completely, but I just think there's better people. Like, I would rather go Sanders right above him if I could. So I think it's more of a fade than anything, but I'll have 0 Weitzerek and maybe a couple Buellers, just because I do think he's going to get the win. Just don't know how high he scores.
So last but not least, because I kind of need your opinion on this one, and it's interesting because, look, Diego Lima and Yushin Okami, they're not known for finishing people, but every time they've lost a fight in the UFC, at least recently, they've been finished in spectacular fashion. So are you thinking maybe put one of these guys on your lineups, or are you passing altogether?
Man, I don't know. I'm hoping somehow I can get a read here within the next few days, because I do think it could be a tricky fight to put in your lineup. I think it'll both be lower owned in tournaments, so that interests me. But I really am having a hard time picking a side. So I almost want to fade it just because I don't want to throw both of them in lineups and then end up wasting lineups that I don't really believe in. So I don't know what I'm going to do with this fight yet. But as of now, I'm fading it. That could change, but only in tournaments. I won't have either one of these guys in a cash lineup.
Well, Kyle, that is why you're the DraftKings guy for Half the Battle. Always appreciated, my man. We'll speak next week. The fans can follow you at Big Marley 3. Talk to you soon, brother.
All right, bro. Take care.
And once again, that's why Kyle Marley is the DraftKings guy for Half the Battle. You know, he had a max bet on Renato Moicano, my man, and Renato put on the performance of his career.
Yeah, man. Renato showed everyone why he's a top 3 guy, and so did Kyle Marley.
This is true. Well, Shaq, now we got to talk about the fight to watch and the fighter to watch. So what is the fight to watch for UFC Glendale?
My fight to watch is going to be Brad Tavares versus Krzysztof Jaco. I mean, Krzysztof Jaco might take 3 L's in a row here, so I know he's going to come out looking the best he ever has. And, I mean, I truly believe like Brad Tavares is a bad matchup for a lot of guys in that top 10, man. So, and, you know, they got him ranked at number 15, and it's interesting because Uriah Hall, who is teammates with Brad Tavares, just fought Krzysztof Jaco. So that's another side of the story. And Krzysztof, man, it's going to be let's see if how he performs with his back against the wall. And if Brad wins this is a 4-fight win streak, so we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, that's definitely one of the fights to watch. Now, I'm going to be really boring. I'm going to pick the main event because, look, if you have to call your friends that have never watched the UFC before, they don't know about the sport of MMA, and you have to tell them, look, there's this one fight you have to watch between Dustin Poirier and Justin Gaethje. I mean, that's the one because you know for a fact these guys aren't going to hump each other's legs. These guys aren't going to push each other up against the fence and make the crowd boo. You're not going to, ask for a refund for your tickets in this one. This is going to be a fight where you sit at the edge of your seat, where you're standing, when you're throwing shit at the TV. I mean, this is going to be fucking bananas, and someone's going to go out cold in this fight. I have a feeling I know who it is, but the bottom line is, this is my fight to watch. Justin Poirier versus Justin Gaethje. It doesn't get any better than that. Now, Shaq, who is your fighter to watch for UFC on Fox 29?
My fighter to watch is going to be Dustin Poirier. I mean, this guy's worked his way to the top 5 in 2 different weight classes. He's been in the Zuffa company since he was 19 years old. I mean, he can answer, one of those, that legend status, man, if he wins this fight, even though he already is a legend, but he can enter a different type of legend status. And, I mean, if he wins this fight, he's probably one win away for a title fight. I mean, he can fight Tony. I mean, who knows, man? He might fight Khabib. So this is the biggest fight of his career. It's been a long time coming. And if he wins this fight, man, he would have worked his way all the way up from the bottom, man.
Yeah, I mean, Dustin Poirier is always one of the fighters to watch. For me, the fighter to watch is Alex Cowboy Oliveira. Look, Cowboy Cerrone, he only has a couple fights left. He's going to retire soon. So there's a new cowboy in town, and that's Alex Cowboy Oliveira. And he literally is the definition of a cowboy. I mean, this guy was a bull rider before he became a professional fighter. He's always taking fights on short notice. He'll fight anyone, anytime, any place. And he's super exciting, too, as well. If he can go out there and get this win over a guy like Carlos Condit, anytime you see the name Carlos Condit on someone's resume, it just elevates your career to that next level. And Alex is already 7-4 in the UFC. To get his 8th win inside the octagon against a household name like Carlos Condit will only propel his name and his career to that next level into the top 15 because, as you know, somehow Carlos Condit still is ranked in the top 15. So for that reason, Shaq, Alex Cowboy Oliveira is my fighter to watch. Well, Shaq, we did it. It's going down this Saturday. Make sure you guys tune in early because those Fox cards are always early in the afternoon. UFC Glendale, Dustin Poirier versus Justin Gaethje. Make sure you follow me on Twitter at Best Fight Picks. Follow Shaq at MMA Genius 05. Follow our official Instagram at Best Fight Picks Official. Make sure you subscribe to Half the Battle on iTunes, SoundCloud, YouTube, and Stitcher. Hook up those 5-star reviews on iTunes. Send a screenshot of that 5-star review on iTunes. We'll hook you up with that free bet. And Shaq, you got any message for the fans before we talk next week?
UFC Atlantic City, one of the biggest nights in the history of the company. Sign up. It's going to be a huge night. Possible multiple max bets. And let's get it, man. Let's cash these bets. And let's keep the money train rolling.
Yes, sir. We've won 4 out of the last 5 events. They've all been undefeated clean sweeps. We've literally only lost 1 bet in that entire span of 5 events, and it was that Ankalaev fluke. Aside from that, we've been perfect. We've been clean, looking to keep that up. So until the next time, let's cash these bets.